NBA Weekly Roundup time with Tom Haberstroh. This is going to be a fun one because we do have your all-decade team that's coming up in just a second. I don't know if Luka Doncic has made that team because he has come on strong here at the end of the decade. It was Luka versus the Lakers, though, most recently. The Lakers actually figured it out. They slowed down Luka Doncic. What did you see from that game?
Well, they slowed him down by putting him on the floor. You know, he took a big spill there in the second quarter, and he's been dealing with an ankle injury coming into the game, second night of a back-to-back, and he really showed that this is a team that is very top-heavy with Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic. Doncic missing all 6 of his three-pointers. Without him being on target, it was really hard for Dallas to pick up the slack. Only the second time in their season that they've been held under 100 points. That Lakers defense was really good. But I would say that Luka falling and having that injury coming into the game, the ankle, maybe he wasn't himself, but they needed Tim Hardaway to step up, and he had a pulled hamstring there in the first half as well. And he had to exit the game. So that's their third leading scorer. And without him, they really struggled to pick up the slack of Doncic not having his best night. So what really tells me is that they may be active at the trade deadline if they want to take a step up and get into that top tier of the Western Conference. Because right now, Dallas Mavericks might have the best offense, but without Luka and Kristaps Porzingis firing on all cylinders, it's really hard to imagine them beating a team like the Lakers come playoff time.
How much credit do you give the Lakers? It seems like they have an ability to win multiple different ways, whether a defensive effort, shutting down one of the top scorers in the league, being physical with them, and then just outscoring other teams.
You got to give credit to Frank Vogel coming into the season with a lot of big egos on that roster, whether it's Anthony Davis and LeBron James, Rajon Rondo, Danny Green, who's won championships before. And right now, they're all locked in defensively. They have the third best defensive efficiency in the NBA, and that's not what I suspected coming into this season, given how much they struggled last year organizing their defense around LeBron James. But he's certainly motivated with Anthony Davis there next to him. And you got to tip your hat off to Frank Vogel, who has been the leader of top defenses before, but in a different era where Roy Hibbert could just stand there in the paint and be all verticality. And that's different. You don't do that in today's NBA because the game is so much more dynamic and spaced out. They've really done a good job with Anthony Davis, JaVale McGee, and Dwight Howard, who also had a great game, really buying into their roles and being an amazing defensive team. So that is a really good testament to the coaching and to the commitment from the stars on the team.
I have a feeling that LeBron James will be your all-decade team member, at least one of the 5 there. He's certainly on the list of all-time greats in a lot of categories. Point scoring is one of those, although we've seen this year he can also dish the ball, assist pretty well at a high rate too. LeBron James about 5,000 points away from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the all-time scoring leader. Do you think he gets there?
I do, and that's not my opinion from like 5 years ago when I started covering him full time there in Miami. I just thought it was too long. The odds were just not in his favor given how much mileage he has on his tires at that point. He has shown absolutely no decline, really. I mean, he's averaging 25.9 points per game and leading the league in assists. So he is not slowing down in the scoring column. And the math here is simple. If he plays 40 more games this season to end up with about 72, 73, and then plays another 70 the next 3 seasons, he will finish with about 250 games left in his career. If he averages 20 points over the next 250 games, that's 5,000 points. That is the deficit between him and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So that is fascinating. If he plays 3 more seasons at 20 points per game. Right now he's at 25.9 points per game. That's all it's going to take. That's all it's going to take. Like every player can do it. But LeBron James has shown that scoring-wise, he can do this. I think he's going to pull it off simply because he wants to play with his son one day in the NBA, and I think there's going to be a draw for him to elongate his career. So even if he doesn't average 20 points per game over his next 3 seasons, I think he'll play enough to eclipse Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And scoring, by the way, is not LeBron James' best skill, and yet I think it will be at the top of that leaderboard.
Been an amazing career, an amazing decade for LeBron James. So let's get to it here, Tom. Your top 5, your 5-team starting lineup, your all-decade team from the 2010s.
Okay, I'm going to go with Stephen Curry, who finishes the 2010 decade with the highest plus minus, starting from January 1st, 2010. That's the Haberstroh from last week. You can find it on NBCSports.com or the NBC Sports My Teams app. The Haberstroh is that Stephen Curry had the best plus minus of any player in the decade. He's number one and changed the game, by the way, with the three-pointer. Number two is James Harden. He's mostly a point guard at this point, and he just transformed his game and became an MVP caliber player. And the next thing he needs to do is win a championship there for Houston, but enough to be on the all-decade team. Then you got three threes. You got Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, and LeBron James. And I think that speaks to the fact that this game has been dominated by wings and by perimeter players, not the center position, which ruled the game for so many decades. Now it's become a lot more about versatility and being able to guard multiple positions. Kawhi Leonard with 2 championships as the finals MVP, once in San Antonio and another time in Toronto. I think he also changed the game in terms of just being a mercenary and playing for Toronto and winning a title. That's going to change the game for the next decade. And then Kevin Durant and LeBron James. I don't think I really need to say much more about those two, but those two are incredible players, and they have a chance to be on the list in the next decade too.
So it's tough to argue. There's your 5: Curry, Harden, Leonard, James, and Durant. So who was number 6? Who was the guy that it pained you perhaps, but you had to leave him off the top 5?
Any big, really. DeAndre Jordan, Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard, any sort of center really didn't make it on my list because I think just the game changed. And Anthony Davis is kind of the modern day big man, a guy who came in. Right now, he's 25, 26 years old. He's going to be on that list next decade. I'm sure of that. Giannis Antetokounmpo could be on that list if we expanded to 10 names, but ultimately, I think given the fact that he just started coming on the last couple years, I think it's hard to put him in that top 5. But, man, it's tough to argue. Stephen Curry, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, all title contenders or title winners except for James Harden, who is averaging just about 40 points per game right now, which is insane.
How much did you consider guys that were maybe more at the start of the decade? I'm thinking Tim Duncan, Dwayne Wade here, Dirk Nowitzki. How close were they to making your top 5?
Yeah, I mean, they're the twilight of their careers. I mean, considering that they are guys that are out of the league right now, it's hard for me to put them in the list. And I think they, in the 2000s to 2010, are on that list. So we can't be greedy. Tim Duncan could probably be on 3 decades at this point. But I'm not going to be greedy with those guys. I already have LeBron James, who is probably on the 2000-2010 team. So I think with those guys, they're champions in this decade multiple times. But I think when you look at these young players coming up, James Harden, who went to the finals with OKC, I think they have a legitimate claim for no doubt on that top 5.
And I believe you've written about who you think may be the top 5 players in the 2020s, at least the first few years there. So let's get into predictions right now. As you look into your crystal ball, we'll limit it to this year, 2020. What do you see in the near future in the NBA? What's going to be making headlines, the Tom Haberstroh predictions for the next few months here?
Well, let's keep it to transactions. I'm going to put 3 trades that are going to happen in 2020, and I'll just say it. Kevin Love to Portland. He's a Portland native. They have a hole at the 4 spot. Carmelo Anthony can shift to the 3. They might not defend at a high level, but I think really that move would be for beyond 2020. I think they need to load up and legitimize themselves as title contenders. Kevin Love can help them do that. They have Hassan Whiteside's contract to trade there. Andre Iguodala, who has not played a game this season, I think in 2020 he will be traded to the Dallas Mavericks, who have a need as a perimeter defender and a distributor, not just Luka Doncic as the distributor on that team. I think Andre Iguodala ends up with Dallas because they have the assets to pull it off. And lastly, my third and final trade prediction of 2020 is going to be, help me out here. I think I'm going to go with
Laker, maybe? A new Laker?
Derrick Rose.
Oh, wow.
That's my hot take. Everyone's looking at the Lakers if they're going to get Andre Iguodala. I think they're going to get another number 1 pick. Dwight Howard's already on the team, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, but I think they're going to get another number 1 overall pick. It might take Kyle Kuzma to go over to Detroit, but Detroit's a team that needs a future star. Derrick Rose is not going to be a guy who's going to be there 5 years down the road and leading them to the next phase of their franchise. I think Derrick Rose, Kyle Kuzma, and some minor parts exchange either way. I think Derrick Rose would be an asset coming off the bench and being a 20-point scorer a la Lou Williams. That would be a lot of fun, wouldn't it? D Rose with LeBron James, Dwight Howard, and Anthony Davis, all number 1s.
That team's already a lot of fun. I don't know, that's excessive fun there for the Lakers. So those are the predictions for 2020. We're going to hold Tom to that. Tom, well done. I predict that you're going to be back next week, and we'll do this all again.
Let's do it.